probably lived. So being said that, if all the land is together, God's calling these animals to come in, then the one massive continent makes sense. Also with, there is frozen vegetation in Antarctica. And scientists believe that Antarctica actually was up around the equator. And so it was very fertile, and then when it shifted to the bottom, that's when it turned frozen like it was.
So what you're saying is that when God created this, it was a perfect thing. So there were no wasteland areas, there were no places that were not suitable for vegetation, and later on, human life and animal life is pretty much what. So when we start out here, we begin to look at the creation of land. That God said, let there be a separation of the waters and the land. He started, as he did everything in his creation, with perfection. Everything God created in this first week was perfection. It was about making the very best it could be. It was about being everything it needed to be. The very first thing I began to think of as I begin to look a little prophetically into this is God says, and when he creates the land, he says, I'm going to make something that's perfect. I'm going to make the very best. And I see two things in the Word of God that this points to. Number one, we find in Exodus chapter 3, verse 8. God tells Moses, I've heard the cry of the people of Israel as they've been enslaved to the Egyptians. And I am going to give them a land that is flowing with milk and honey. He says, I'm going to give them a beautiful place. I am going to give them a place that is everything they ever wanted. It's not, right now it's somebody else's. It's not going to be anybody else's. It's going to be yours. I'm going to make you a land. I'm going to make you a people. And I think here on this day 3, we're beginning to see that God is saying, look, I have a place. He is creating in this day of creation, as Pastor Mike already said, he is creating the building blocks that he needs to create life, to create human life. Just as he has said, I am preparing a place for you. Then you jump into the New Testament, and Jesus says in the book of John, let not your heart be troubled. If you believe in God, believe also in me. For in my Father's house are many mansions, and I go to prepare a place for you. I'm going to go make sure that there is a place for you in heaven, a perfect place, a place that is full of perfection, where God is our light, as we talked about earlier, where we have the mansions, where we have the streets of gold, where we have more than all those things, we have the presence of God. I believe the reason we talk about streets of gold and gates of pearl is that those things become so important to us. They're what we walk on. They're what the gates are made of. Because everything centers around the perfection of being in the presence of God. God is saying at this day 3, look, I am going to create not only a place for you to live on this earth, but I am already going to set in motion spiritually a perfect place for you. God has put in the foundations of this world, he has created a perfect place for you and a perfect place for me. We call that God's will. When we get into the center of God's will, when we get into doing exactly what God has asked us to do, when we begin to do exactly what God has called upon us to do, there is a place that you walk into and you go, wow, this feels right. All of a sudden you feel like everything can work. You feel like you can do the impossible. Why? Because you start moving into that perfect will of God, that perfect place that he has prepared for you all the way back at creation. Day 3 of creation, he started with this concept, I'm going to make a perfect place for you. And it's going to work perfectly. Now, some things may come and change the way this works. Things happen in life. We, as humans, fell. We sinned. We fell from the will of God. We talked about this last week in talking about the firmament and how that due to the sin, Noah's flood came and that broke down the firmament. It caused the protection of the world to be done away with. When we go very much to the same place in Noah's flood, we see the breaking apart of these planets. We see the breaking apart of it. And it looks like it creates an imperfection within God's perfect creation. But what it actually does is it creates more avenues of reaching out, more avenues of diversity, more avenues of sharing and existing. And God has taken the vision of the land, and He said, look, I am going to make a perfect place for you, but because of sin, it's not all going to be in the same place. We don't all look the same. We don't all dress the same. We don't all act the same. Some of us have country accents, and some of us don't. Some of us call it Coke, some of us call it pop, and some of us call it soda. And I've lived in all of those places. And you know, we have different words for different things. We talk different, we look different, we dress different. But God has said, look, you can be within my perfect will and not be exactly alike. You can be within my perfect will because I have created a land for you. I have created a place for you to fit in. And that is what God did. He created for us a place for us to fit in. Now, so initially, that's sort of what I see spiritually. Now, I want to go a little deeper into some of your talking here about the earth splitting apart. Now, explain to me, and maybe you already did, but I'm just a little slow because I am slow sometimes. Explain to me the plate tectonics.
Plate tectonics, that is where the plates, there are 28 major plates on the earth, and the continental plates, when they shift and move, if you look between North America, South America, and Africa and Europe, there's a white line that kind of curves the same motion or the same path that Africa does. And what that is, that's an underwater mountain range. These plates, when they move, they shift around, and that's how mountains are formed, from these plates moving. And it moves just a few centimeters or a few inches per year. But you know, you take that over time and it moves out quickly. It can also move by pressure, and that's where Noah's flood, being underneath a whole earth full of water, the pressure of that could have split it and made the plates move even more. That's how volcanoes are formed. The plates that are underneath the ocean are very extremely heavy. The plates that are the land are a little bit lighter. Again, they're heavy, but they're lighter. And so when the two collide together, the ocean actually will go underneath the land, which causes a lot of pressure underneath the Earth's crust. This makes the mantle start to bubble up, and this is where volcanoes come from. This is how Hawaii came about. Was from continental drift moving together and causing that pressure of the mantle to explode and creating new land, because every time that rock cooled, it created another island. There's actually an island now being formed. They said within the next 10,000 years it should surface the water. So I won't be able to see it to go to the new Hawaiian island, but hey, who knows? So from this, scientists believe that, again, that it can come together.
Now, does the Bible support this theory?
I believe the Bible does support this theory. And with that, again, going back to Noah, not being able to call the animals up. If the animal was in North America, that is not in Africa. There's no way that he could have had that animal on the boat. Therefore, the animal would have drowned. Therefore, the animal wouldn't be around us today. As well as going back to where God said, "And let the land appear." I really believe that, you know, God had everything, again, perfect. And perfect, when you think of perfection, united we stand, divided we fall. The great quote there. As the land's united and as all the plates are together, that's stronger. When they move apart, and you know, North America and South America are moving away from Africa and Europe, they're actually splitting apart. So I believe that, you know, God, when he made the perfection, that it was all together.
Okay. Now, we've talked